to my tutorial on mixing and blending textures for architectural projects. In this video, I'll explore some advanced techniques that help create this more realistic material. The material you see here, where we have two materials blending into each other. And not only that, we have the displacement also blending in. So you can see this slight transition, and I'll also show you how you can change this on the fly as we go. So join me as we uncover this easy yet powerful tricks to improve your architectural visualizations, and let's jump straight into it. So in this video, this is what we're going to create, where we have this blended material fading into the other. And you can have this ability where you can just change the distance, as easily saying like this, 3 meters, and then you'll see it update where the path is now extended, the surface is pushed back, and it's still blending in together. So here's the scene I have set up. If I hit render, this is exactly what I have here. There's no materials on it, but I do have a Forest Pro object set up like this. And if I go into my spline, I hit 1, you'll notice that this dynamically updates as I go. I won't be explaining how I do that in this video. I will be doing that in my next video, how you can set this up. But for the moment, we're concentrating on the material creation. So let's jump into that. So what do we need to do, first of all, to get this material working? Well, we need 2 materials. So this is the first material I have. It's just an asphalt hard surface texture. That'll be our main surface that's in the middle, what people walk on. And then just below that, we have our bark. So if I go view image here, this is the texture we're going to be using to create our bark surface, or I should say more the soil surface. So how do we start? Well, first of all, get your 2 materials like you would anything, plug in your textures. I'm not going to be explaining that. I'm only going to be explaining the next material, which is the V-Ray material, is what people use. So right click, go to materials, go to V-Ray, and we're going to go to V-Ray blend material. So go here, there's our V-Ray blend. I'm going to apply this straight onto our surface right now. Now, if I hit render, you'll notice that there's nothing there because we need to define a base material. So let me just minimize this to make it a bit easier to see. So we have our cracked asphalt. I'm going to say this is our base material, plug that in, and now that's going to be produced on our surface. It's exactly what we want. But now we need to blend the other material in. So how do we do that? So select your material. If I zoom in here, you see coat 1. That's where we need to put our first material that we want to blend with this. So click and drag and paste that into coat. So now that we've applied this material into our first coat, you'll notice down here we now have a mix of both. So what's happening? So you see this section here, you see this color. Basically, this is deciding how much of the material will blend at the beginning, just a basic black and white gradient. So if I bring this down to white, you'll see that this material now is 100% being shown. So it's 100% white. So that means everything in the coat 1 is going to be seen. So if I push this all the way up to dark, now only the base material is going to be shown. You can see it over here, that's going to be black. Now you could use this, but it's not the best way to do it. What you could do is use a map. And I'm going to quickly put in a noise map so you can see this in action and see what's actually happening. So in order to see this effect a bit more easily, let's add in a noise. So I'm going to go maps, general, and add in a noise. And then in here, there's 2 ways you can do. You can click and drag this into our blend amount here, or you can go down here to blend 1. Now that we've done that, this is now driving the mask. This doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter what I do up and down. That's not going to affect anything. This is going to be driving our mask. So I'm going to hit render now so you can see this in effect. And it's quite tough to see. So I'm going to increase or decrease this to like 0.7 and this to 0.3. And then you're going to start seeing, if I update this, there you go. You can see that black is now a bit stronger. And we can put this size, say, to about 1. Or maybe even smaller, we'll go 0.5. And you can start seeing in here, we're seeing the blend between the 2 materials. This is just to show you what's going on. You could do this to break it up, but what we're going to do is we're going to use a spline to define where we want that blending to happen. So that was just to show you that yes, you can use different maps and black and white textures in here to define which texture is shown. So if you wanted to have a bit more control of where the material blends, well, let's jump straight into that and I'll show you how it's done. So how are we going to define the path in which it blends? Well, what we're going to use is what's called a vrayDistance texture. So if I go maps, V-Ray, and I go to vrayDistanceTex, this is what we're going to use. But the main thing is we need to use an object to define this. So what we need to do first of all is go into our scene, and I want to tell it an object to define that path. So we already have this spline, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add on a renderable spline, click this, and there we have our shape. So that's what we're going to use to define the path and tell this distance texture, use this shape to push the material of the blended material this way. So I'm going to click this, I'm going to click the plus button, and I'm going to add this into our object. I can hit H there to hide that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug this straight into where we have this noise texture. I'm going to plug this instead into the blend 1. And then I can just delete this. And let's see what happened once I did that. If I hit render now, you'll see it seems to have gotten rid of everything. But what's actually happened is this texture is set to 10 meters by default. It might be different depending on the unit scale you're using. But let's say I switch this to 1 meter. Now straight away you can see what's happening. We have this texture down the middle, and we have the other texture going along the side. And the great thing about this setup is now that I have this in, I can actually move this spline. And if I move it, the path is going to update based on that spline. So we don't need to update UVs, we don't need to do anything. All we can do is push and pull this path, and this actual path in the texture is going to change and update. So it's very, very powerful. One other thing we can do is now, you see it's quite flat at the moment. And that's because we have it is just flat. It's just a flat surface. What we need to do is add some displacement to it, or you could sculpt it. For displacement is much easier to do because all you do is put a map onto it. We already have the maps. So let's add in some displacement and add a lot of life to this. So the very first thing we have to do is we have to add a vrayDisplacement mod straight on this. So that's on our surface. And I'm going to select subdivision. You can do 3D mapping or subdivision. I'm going to do subdivision for this one. And I have these settings down here. But what we need to do is we need to give it a map to use. If I hit render now, nothing's going to happen. It's not going to change at all. So what I'm going to do is go materials. So you can see we have our 2 displacement layers right here. So I'm going to go view image, and you can see this is the roots one. And then here I have the cracked asphalt. That's the path. So we have a tiny bit of an issue is if I plug this straight into my vrayDisplacement, go OK, and then I hit render, you see we get some great displacement, but we get it here perfectly. But over on this side, we get it on this material we don't want. So first things first is we need to remove this displacement from this path. Well, we know how to do that because we have our V-Ray edge here, and we can use that to tell displacement, okay, I don't want you to go where this edge is. So let's set that up. So like I said, we have a V-Ray distance texture, which is going to define that edge. So we're going to tell this displacement, don't go onto that path where this edge defines it. So the first thing is we're going to right click, go to materials, go to maps, general, and then let's go to composite. So the very first thing is we're going to plug this into our layer 1. And the great thing about the composite is it has a layer mask for our layer 1. So we can plug this in here and tell it use this as the mask, and you can see a mask already comes through here. That's the line. Now before we hit render, we have to plug this into our displacement because currently we just have that. We need to plug the composite map into our displacement, click OK, and let's hit render and see what that has done. And look, straight away we have the displacement not affecting that edge, but we have this displacement transitioning into this edge, which is exactly what we want. We don't want a hard edge, we want this to be a soft transition into this path. But now we have another issue, which is this has no displacement now, and we want it to have this displacement down here. Well, we can just add it onto the composite map. So I'm going to hit stop on this render, I'm going to select this, and I'm going to click add here to add another layer. I'm going to click this into our layer 2. Now, the issue is, if I use this same one and hit render, you can see we're not getting the issue we want because it's using the edge of that again, and it's only using this. So what we need to do is we need to say the invert of this. So that's simple enough. I'm going to hit stop. I'm going to go right click, maps, general. I'm going to go to output. Click that. Straight away, I'm going to go down here and I'm going to click invert. Make sure you see that there. We're going to click this, put it in here, and you can see that's the invert of it. Instead of that mask being just this one, we're going to put the inversion of it into layer 2. And now I'm going to hit render. And as you can see now, we have both materials. We have this map being on this texture, and we have this map being on this texture. So now we have a blend between the both. And this is pretty much what we want. One issue we have is that we can't adjust the displacement individually. So at the moment, this displacement might be too strong and this displacement might be too weak. If I go in here and I change this to like 2.5, that's changing both maps and it's making it way too strong, as you can see like that. So we obviously don't want that. If we go 0.5, maybe not that exaggerated, but you can see both maps are now getting pushed to an extreme height. And a way to fix this, if I hit stop, is you can go into your map and go down to output at the bottom and you can go enable color map. So this at the moment is going to be the displacement out here. So let me zoom in so you can see a bit better. So you can see we have this displacement on this side. And if I go to the output here, I can start changing things. So I can go Bezier and I can start curving this down. And that's going to change the strength of this. Now I probably want the opposite of that. If I push this down, it's going to make that weaker. You see, it's pushed that all the way down, but it has not affected the displacement on this side. We're affecting this map by itself. So the same with this one. If we felt this is too strong, enable color map. Go to here. We can push this down. And now that's after getting weaker as well. So if I go out altogether, now we have a slightly weaker version of both, but you still have the ability to push and pull these and get a stronger looking feel. So that's just a quick way to show you how you can blend two materials together. There's many other ways. This is just one particular way I like to do it. And just to go over again, you have one material as your base. You have another material as the coat one, which is the one that's going to be blended in. And the way you're defining the blend in my case is I'm using an edge, a bit of geometry to tell you where exactly the path is. So that means I can move the path back and forth. And then I'm using displacement just to create that extra bit of realism. And that's been using the composite map with the exact same distance texture defining what these are. And it's as simple as that. I hope you enjoyed it. I will be showing you how to create this actual scene where the forest can update my next video. But thanks for everything and subscribe if you want to see more of this.